Welcome to For the Culture. My name is Rob Johnson. I'm the Director of Multicultural Affairs here at Sacred Heart University. I'm joined here by a special guest
Hey.
for our first ever episode of our For the Culture podcast, where we talk about issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher ed spaces, right? I'm joined by my graduate assistant, Leela Gallucci. She has been my graduate assistant in the Office of Multicultural Affairs for the past year. She's been a major help and pillar in the Multicultural Center, and I felt like it would be a great opportunity to bring her on for today's first episode. And for also, for historical purposes, right? To just record and let people know who we started with, where we started, and to get some familiar faces. So, Leela, yeah, how's it going? How's the day going so far? I know we just left the center like an hour or so ago. So,
It's good. This is a good week, actually.
mhm. Very eventful week.
Yeah.
Very eventful week. It's actually Social Justice Week. A very Yeah, Social Justice Week has always been a pretty prominent week long um, advocacy activism opportunity for our students. But coming out of the pandemic, which we're still technically in a pandemic, right? Um,
hmm
but coming out of a less severe part of the pandemic or whatever the case is, we've been trying to have more events, and this week there were a lot. There wasn't as many as we usually might have, right? But there was a lot going on, even outside of our department, which was actually cool for us to see. So
Right.
yeah. Um, so yeah, no, I kind of wanted to be able to talk to you about your perspective being a 4 year undergrad at Sacred Heart. Obviously, I was a 4 year undergrad, and I have my own personal perspective of how the Multicultural Center is impacting the community, how it's impacting students, across the university. But I want to ask you, like, what have you learned, I guess, over the past year? Because you started out as an intern,
Yeah.
right? So Leela started out as an intern with the Multicultural Center last year, when I had no idea what I was doing, and really just trying to build the department from the ground up. She started off as an intern, killed it, and acquired a position as our first ever graduate assistant. And I kind of just want to know, like, what have you learned over the past year just working in the MC, helping to build it up? So,
Yeah, so I was actually super thrilled to start working here as an intern because I have always wondered why we didn't really have a place on campus that could be a good like hub and a popular spot to hang out for the underrepresented community because it's very obvious on our campus
yeah.
that we're predominantly white. And so I
Mhm.
always kind of it was always in the back of my head like, oh, like that would be a really great addition to this campus. So when I heard about its opening, I was in my first year of grad school
Mhm.
and I needed the internship anyway. So I just
Mhm.
thought that um, it could be a place where I knew that I would thrive because I've
Mhm.
always kind of looked for that in my undergraduate experience as
Mhm.
well. So I've always loved being a leader and a voice on campus, and I
Mhm.
love interacting with students and doing anything that I can to help them succeed too. So that's been kind of like my favorite part
Mhm.
um, working in the center this year because I really get to learn a lot about myself through them.
Mhm.
So it's really comforting to kind of go through that secondary education, well, third level education, I guess, with the undergraduate students because I can kind of help guide them in in kind of things that I wish I knew when I was in their
Yeah.
position,
Yeah.
and vice versa too. Because as you said before, since I'm going into my career in public relations, I think that I've been able to gain a lot of hands-on experience with working in a organization that is from the ground up
Mhm.
because like I really helped assist you in creating things for the first time ever. So a lot
Mhm.
of the work that we did, I can say that I was the only one to work on it, which is a really, really important thing to bring into an interview,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially going forward. So
Mhm.
it's I've been really lucky to kind of get my hands on everything from the
Mhm.
beginning.
Mhm.
And it's helped me build resilience because I've been able to see like what works, what doesn't work. Um, I have a lot of things to learn from that maybe didn't work the first time. And it's
Mm.
just, yeah, I've just been able to get a lot of experience in so many different levels rather than just PR and communications work, which has been really exciting.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a great point about being able to have your hands on something from the ground up, which like that's kind of rare
Yeah.
on most college campuses, right? Most times when you go to an institution, the Multicultural Center is named after somebody
Yeah.
already, right? So it's like you have to then find your space, your place within that culture, within that dynamic or that center, depending on what their dynamic is. And hopefully the dynamic is that it's open and accepting, and
Yeah,
supportive of students, right? Um, but you've actually been able to be a part of the inception of that we've created so far.
exactly.
And yeah, no, I again, I always try to give Leela her flowers and shout her out. Um, because we won't have her after
I
this
know.
upcoming summer.
It's
I know it's
so
bittersweet. I
weird.
know, I know. We talk about it all the time. Because in getting into our groove of being, consistent and knowing what works, like you
Yeah.
said, and
Yeah,
building
yeah.
things from the ground up, like okay, having to dot all our I's and cross all our T's in our planning, in preparation for you know, maybe month long celebrations or events that we're going to be having for students. Um, that won't be here this time next year.
I
So
know.
it'll be a bittersweet moment. The day Leela does have to, take that first big step into the real world. But I also want to publicly again give you your flowers and say I appreciate everything you've done, um,
Thank you.
and everything you've done with the students as well, because um, your experience as a graduate assistant just reminds me of my experience when I was a GA
Yeah.
and working with students in volunteer programs and trying to mentor them and work with them. But you outdone me.
Thank you.
um, but yeah, no. So I kind of want to move along to my next kind of not topic question. What are some of the differences you've recognized in your undergrad experience to now your grad experience since the inception of the MC? Like, what are some of the major differences that you've noticed so far?
I would say just the fact that we actually have really uncomfortable conversations and that we're bringing them outside of the MC,
Mm-hmm.
or we're starting to bring them outside of the MC
Mm-hmm.
because those conversations were literally not even thought of, like not let alone spoken of,
Mm-hmm.
when I was an undergrad too. Like
I can agree.
I
Yeah.
always talk about the experience when I was a freshman during the 2016 presidential election,
Mm.
and that was such a weird day to go to class because
Mm.
everyone just ignored the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of a lot of people in class ignored the elephant in the room, but yet I was walking in the hallway and I was seeing all these like flags,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so
I remember that day too.
yeah, it was
I was a
just
GA. That was when I was a GA. So yeah.
it was so weird. It was such an eerie experience. Like I'll literally never forget that day
Mm-hmm.
because after seeing all that and seeing people like react the way they did, nobody talked about it,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody talked about how that could negatively affect so many people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just, again, there was never a place where I feel like people can truly express themselves and express who they are in their full like form of expression,
Mm-hmm.
because people especially in the underrepresented community always felt like they had to like be a different version of them to fit
Mm.
into the culture of Sacred
Yeah,
Heart.
yeah, and there in a lot of ways you do have to wear a different mask or
Yes.
assimilate or something like that, or hide your feelings about a presidential election that directly impacts maybe
Yes.
your status as a student on campus,
Yes.
and also having to deal with the push pull because I know people watching that aren't for us might be like, well, why are you making things political? Like, this isn't about politics. This is about
No. Yeah.
this is about something completely different. And I kind of want to, you know, uh, clearly state that so that people understand. Like, no, we're not talking about politics. We're talking about the ramifications of what uh, a certain individual or certain individuals represent,
Right,
right? That is
exactly.
literally in opposition of my existence.
Right.
So, so yeah.
Yeah, so that's it's definitely been really rewarding to just kind of see that we there's finally a place where people can come in and take a sigh of
Mm-hmm.
relief knowing that they have a community of people who fully support them,
Mm-hmm.
and it just makes me really happy. So
Yeah, yeah, no, and I think, I mean, one of the happiest things, aside from, I know I always talk about helping to establish IOTA on campus all the time, right?
right.
But like, aside from that, like and I've won championships with the
Yeah.
football team. I've done like a lot. I've been in, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? I've been an RA. I've done a lot of different things on campus in my own personal experience. Aside, put all those other things aside, the helping to, again, and I hate when people try to, just say, Rob, you've done this, Rob, I was like, no, no one's got nowhere without help. Let's be honest, right? um I know I'm the face for the most part, right? But I'm it's been like the pride of my life to be able to establish the center. But then, my next big project is to create a level of sustainability for the center, so that, God forbid, if I were not no longer here, can that culture remain, right? Can that culture be
Right.
sustained, right? um and that's my hope, right? That's what we work for every single day. That's what we try to do, in
Exactly.
having these conversations that might be uncomfortable, that might um maybe get under a couple different people's skin, but it helps you grow, and it helps you advance. And that's what leads me to my next question, though.
Mhm.
How have you grown in your experience, in, so you mentioned like mentoring students and being that person for them that you kind of wish you
Right.
had, um, and hearing the different conversations, because I learn a lot from the kids too. Like,
Yeah.
Gen Z is very outspoken, right? So I'm at the tail end of the millennial side,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I can speak to how I've grown, but I want to know, like, how have you grown in your experience in the MC, like from literally just the idea of it being an internship to
Mhm.
now it being like, this is my full-time everyday thing. This is
Yeah.
what I do every day. I get up and go to work
Yeah.
and, do my thing. So how have you grown since, because of those things?
I've definitely gotten so much more confident
Mm-hmm.
in my ability to kind of take my own ideas and put them into fruition because um especially when I decided to go to grad school, it was a very last minute decision for me. And so, I mean, I was confident in my ability as a student and my ability to be resilient
Mm-hmm.
because we were in a pandemic.
Yeah.
But I always in the back of my head was a little nervous like, am I making too hasty of a decision in terms of my career? But I kind of just needed to put myself out there and be confident in who I was and in my ideas and in my um, thoughts because working here really made me realize that everything I do have to offer is very valid and
Mm-hmm.
is and works and it's successful and people are really open to what I have to say and um, not that it's all about me or whatever,
Yeah, no, we
but
we
it
talk about it all the time.
yeah.
It's not being selfish, it's
No,
self-preservation. Yeah.
exactly. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I definitely know that I'm gonna leave here being like, oh yeah, I know that this is where I'm supposed to be. This is the
Mm-hmm.
work I'm supposed to be doing, and I have all this experience to back me up
Mm-hmm.
because my ideas worked in this situation. It didn't work here, but that's how I. This is where I know I can improve,
Mm-hmm.
and these are all experiences and uh, ideas and mindsets that I can bring into my workplace
Mm-hmm.
next.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so much more worldly than I
Yeah.
even was before.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I asked that for a reason, because I think, again, even myself, I've grown so much in the last year, and I think, I say this all the time, like, our own lived experience, especially in these conversations, can be, it's easy to just put that at the forefront and just,
yeah.
that's our only perspective. But when you take a minute to literally just stop, look, listen, and hear out the students, or hear out the different professors and people that actually, they literally come in and support us, right? Like we
Right.
have those, those core people on
Yeah.
campus that actually do support us. Like they reshare our stuff. They like our stuff. They literally come to support at our events and stuff like that, and show
Hmm.
up and show out. Um, and it's a small few, but a mighty few, if that makes
Right.
sense,
And that's
right?
all you need to start off, and you're
Exactly.
hopefully when we have just a few mighty people, it
Mm-hmm.
inspires other people who might be on the fence to
Yeah.
kind of take that step
No, that's true.
and grow.
That's
So,
true. Absolutely. No, I agree with that. So, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was what like diversity, equity, inclusion topics like were you kind of maybe not so quote unquote woke on or let me not say woke, informed about,
right.
right? That over the past year you're like, wow, like I had no idea that that was like um something that people were advocating for, or like something that you might have thought that you had a handle or understanding of it, and now you're like, whoa, I didn't even know that that was happening. Because there's so many times where like if we have the question of the week like
Mhm.
on the board, I'm learning more from the students, and then using the question of the week to generate the conversation for students that don't know, right? Because sometimes when you're um people feel bad like internally when they think that they're uninformed, right, or
Right.
not in the know. So I don't know, what things like have you, like, I guess diversity, equity, inclusion topics really have been like have you been enlightened about over the past year?
That's so hard because there's been so much that
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought that I knew, but
Me
but
too.
yeah.
Me too. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, like I always considered myself to be pretty informed about a
Mm,
lot of diversity and inclusion topics,
mm.
but I really just was not even skimming the
Yeah,
surface
yeah.
when I actually was talking to other students and
Mm,
hearing about their experiences. But one thing that um, I've always been really trying to work on understanding more about how I can be support to the LGBTQ plus community,
yeah,
because that's something that I never really learned a lot about growing up.
yeah.
So um, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misrepresenting anybody within
Mm,
that community from my lack of awareness growing up. Even though, like,
mm,
I try my best to stay informed on as much as
mm.
I can. But then also, like, I've also learned so much from other Black students on campus
Yeah,
just about so many injustices that they go
yeah,
through every day
yeah.
that I had no idea. Like, I can't even fathom like when you did the "no, you can't touch my hair" event
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
I couldn't
yeah.
even fathom that, like,
Somebody just coming.
that
Yeah.
people would say things like that
Mm-hmm.
and microaggressions like that
Mm-hmm.
to other people.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Especially on campus too,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously I would have not experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have never known unless
Mm-hmm.
someone else told me. And it's just, again, there's literally everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everything that I thought I knew
New.
a
It's
little bit
like you
about,
got,
I was like,
yeah.
oh wow, I actually had no idea.
And it's funny you say that. Well, I always want to be as transparent as possible because like for me it's like the women's issue stuff, right, and like being that like literally the majority of the students in the center are young women, right? Like let's be
Right.
honest, like
Yeah,
we
this
only
whole
have,
school is. Yeah.
I don't think I can't count all the young men that actually come to the center
Mhm.
on, I can probably, both hands is enough, right?
Yeah.
Um so yeah, like learning more about women's issues, women's health, for me has been like more of an eye opener. And I know a lot of people on campus kind of defer to me and look at me as if I know everything. I was like, one is like, I always have to say this because I said this yesterday on a panel. Like it's impossible to know every uh, marginalized community's social justice issue or cause, right? Like
Right.
it's not possible to know every single
Yeah.
thing. So, and you have to be okay with that, but you also have to know that, um, like it's because it's a balance, right? Because if you're trying to be super informed about everybody, it's gonna drive you crazy because
Yes.
you're gonna be like, damn, this world is that bad, like
And it
this,
also can come
right?
across as like super annoying to other people. I like
Mm-hmm.
actually yesterday Amy
Mm-hmm.
Schneider came to our campus
Mm-hmm.
from Jeopardy, and she actually was talking about first she talked a lot about how she just wishes that everyone learns to be okay with being wrong.
Yeah.
That's the only way that we learn, and
Yeah.
that's the only way that we grow, is
Yeah.
if someone calls you out for being wrong. And it's like not against you or your character. It's just, hey, this is just how you can do it right next time,
Yeah.
and everyone should be cool with that.
Yeah.
And then also she was talking about how someone asked her about pronouns and how like what she thinks about people including their pronouns now more on social media and stuff like that. And she was like, yeah, that's great, but also she said it's so weird when people come up to me and just like, hi, my name's Leela and my pronouns are she, her. And she's like, that's mad awkward.
It's mad
because
robotic, right?
Yeah, because then she said as a trans woman she feels obligated to share her pronouns and it's kind of uncomfortable too. So she says that she hopes that she wishes that sometimes people wouldn't come on too strong with like, yeah, the intent is there, like you want to learn how to represent someone in the right way, but also it can be mad annoying if people are just
well, it ends up slowly forming itself into a slight microaggression, right? And it's like that's where people need to be culturally aware and experientially aware. Not that, again, you're not going to know everybody's experience. Like if you drop me in the middle of Hawaii right now, I'm for
oh
real.
My gosh.
There are issues that native, indigenous people in Hawaii are going through that, like, I would never.
Oh my God, it's horrible. I was just there too.
Yeah. So it's like how, you're not going to know everything, but if you drop me in that space or that place and I try too hard to relate, but I cross a cultural barrier or a cultural line with my intention of connecting with you, right? My intent is to connect with you. But you look at me like, what? Like, you know what I mean? So it's just, no, I get exactly what you're saying, because it's easy. It can be easily misconstrued and it can become annoying. It does become annoying, right? So yeah. So what have been like one of the biggest highlights in the past year? Because last year we were like pretty much full on pandemic, right? Spring 21 when you first started. We were doing everything virtually.
Oh my gosh, that was so horrible.
Yeah, it was I mean, it was good to just be doing anything, because, the other big caveat of the center being established, when it was established, right, in September of 2020, was the fact that, we are in the midst of a pandemic, but we're trying to connect with people, but from a distance. And it was like, how can you have, when you're having conversations about culture, you can't just learn that over a Zoom screen, right? You need to learn that, and it's an experience. It's like an in-person experience, right? So that was one of our biggest hurdles, especially for me in the first semester when I started, and then once, like, just before you began, I think I was like 6, 7, 8 months in. I don't know. But yeah, just doing all that virtual programming and stuff like that. Trying to still support students. I mean, we've had students transfer still, right? Because they're like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm still dealing with microaggressions, and I'm still dealing with biased language and all types of stuff.
Lack of accessibility.
Yeah, lack of it. Oh, you name it, right? Yeah. So, and this year's been a lot better because we've had those interpersonal connections. We've had that cross-cultural experiences, right? People going to salsa night, people doing all these different things. So, it's been great. But like, because I have a couple of, I mean, every event really is the biggest highlight for me. I just love seeing students together having fun, right? But I don't know, what's been one for you that like really has hit home or like stuck with you since we've had it?
I'm trying to think. I really love Wisdom Wednesdays, actually. Like, I know that's not like a major event, it's like a weekly thing.
Yeah.
But I was actually just talking yesterday about just how many more people have been showing up. Like, our room has been like
wall to
really
wall.
Crowded. Yeah. Which is really awesome, because I think that even though students don't always say all the time like how much they appreciate what we say at Wisdom Wednesdays, you can tell it affects them, because you start to see their their like point of view change a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time too, especially when it comes to just how they approach school and how they
Yeah.
approach their work.
Mm-hmm.
It's less panic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But in terms
Mm-hmm.
of big events, um, I think when we had the BSU cookout,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was really exciting.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
like one of my first major events that I went to as
Mm-hmm.
of like actually being here full time.
That's true, actually, right? That was, oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
September 10th. I don't know
Yes.
why I remember that date so
Oh my
vividly,
god.
but yeah, it was September 10th. No, I think that, so I think it's because I did a social identity wheel training at Sacred Heart Academy up in Hamden, and then I drove back down here to make sure to get back in time for people to have their trucker hats and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So, um,
It
no,
just was like
that
a
was a
whole
highlight event.
it
Yeah.
was just such it was like a whole party too, and
Mm-hmm.
it was really fun because students of all different backgrounds, white, black, Hispanic,
Mm-hmm.
anybody, they all
Mm-hmm.
showed up to get
Mm-hmm.
their hats. They were dancing, they were
Mm-hmm.
having food, they were
Yeah.
playing board games,
Yeah.
and it was just really heartwarming so that not every event that we had on campus had to be centered around something
Mm-hmm.
sad or
Mm-hmm.
something like
Mm-hmm.
that was serious.
Yeah.
So it was really fun to see
Mm-hmm.
everyone connecting with their
Yeah.
peers in that sense too.
Yeah, because sometimes you gotta have those events, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, and I think it's funny you say that because now I'm thinking back to when we were planning in the summer, and I remember myself saying to you and a couple other like staff members, like, this past year with the between the pandemic, the
Right. It's
protests,
so
it
depressing.
was so. It was like, I was like, we gotta have something uplifting.
Yeah,
Like,
and
we gotta.
culture's supposed to be celebrated. Like, yeah, we gotta
Yeah.
have these conversations, but also we
Yes,
gotta
and we can,
celebrate
and
each
we
other.
will,
Yes.
right? But and we did. We have had those serious conversations, right? In a very both formal and informal capacity with having
Right.
professors present at panels and all that type of stuff. Um, but I yes, when we were planning last year, I remember vividly saying, I was like, all of our events, I was like, I don't care. I was like, all of our first 50 days events, because that's a Sacred Heart thing. Like within the first 50 days, you gotta get involved. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, y'all want involvement? I was like,
We'll give it to
okay.
you.
I was like, yeah. I was like, let's do it. And my mindset was, yes, coming out of, the virtual programming, a lot of the depressive conversations, surrounding Derek Chauvin's case, Breonna Taylor.
Yep.
These are still lingering in students' minds. Stop Asian hate, right? Like all of these movements all happening at once. I feel like, I wanted the programming to focus on positivity, not shying away from the issues, but saying, hey, all of this negativity is happening around us. I know we're going to talk about it. And I know that these things are also going to happen again, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So in the meantime, let's celebrate each other's cultures as best we can to push back and resist um, those deficiencies in terms of people's ability to be competent about your experience and your culture, right? So that was one of the main reasons why, like, anytime they were, students were saying, well, I was like, well, I would ask them, I was like, what fun events do we want to have?
Yeah.
And they were like, I was like, well, they
It's
said
always
culture cookout. So
food, music,
yeah,
games.
absolutely, absolutely, and a good time. Like it
Yeah.
really is a good time. Um, I think, I guess to answer my own question, I think the Black Love Gala, even though I didn't
Yes.
go,
Yeah. I wish I did though.
I think that was a major win. Um, because the reason why I felt like that was such a major win is because I know when I was a student that would have never even been a thought
Yeah.
or a possibility, and to help students create that. Um, Definitely National Coming Out Day, and
Oh my
having
gosh, I
Ben.
forgot about that.
Well, no, it's no big deal. I mean,
That was awesome.
like having Ben come and speak and people be so receptive. And I was just saying to somebody, um, I think it was Pat. I was just saying to Pat, you know, this morning, you know, putting it into again. This summer will mark 10 years I've been on this campus. Jesus,
Oh my god.
I don't even know why I said that. And I would have never. I mean, you couldn't tell me like 5 years ago that we would have been able to have two trans speakers come to campus in one academic year,
Yeah.
which is actually historic. And somebody needs to record that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But on the flip side, you know, if you're looking across the country or nationwide, I mean, there are institutions that have multiple activists, trans speakers, um, like advocates, you name it, coming to campus to
All
talk
the
about.
time.
Yeah, so I think it's good that we've done these things, but like we need to do them more
Right.
consistently. But it's still a big win to be able to know that milestone is taking place.
And that there were such big turnouts at them too.
Yeah.
This year at National Coming Out Day, there were so many people,
Mm-hmm.
and Ben was so well received,
Mm-hmm.
and
he's from the area too.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that, like, I think, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think one of the major reasons why I thought that was big is because people think that these people try to psych themselves out and say that, oh, this isn't happening to, like, in my area.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
no. It's like there are trans people sitting right next to you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Whether you know it or not. Yeah, but between National Coming Out Day, Black Love Gala, like watching the kids do the photo booth, all
So
that
fun.
stuff, having a fun. Like, I had alum reach out to me and say, no way, like, no way you put that on for the, like, you know what I mean, or help them put that on. And I was like, yeah, I was like, Rob loved the kids, right? Like, I was like, I love the kids.
Yeah, that's been really nice. Like, part of, sorry to cut you
No,
off.
go ahead.
That's been a really nice part of this job too. Is that when I talk to a lot of alum from my year and even older than me, they're like, "Wow, oh my gosh." Like, I really wish I could go back in time, and just hearing how excited they are for the current Sacred Heart students has been really nice too, because you can really tell, like, how much they missed out on that opportunity. And it makes me feel good knowing that students now will always have these memories to look back on.
Yeah, and I also try to get them to understand, the students now to understand, because, like, the last class of students that came in without MC will be like maybe a year or two from now. Once like Maria, Jayla, Sydney
graduate.
Once they graduate, I think that's the last class, if I'm not mistaken. So by that point, like, everyone will have experienced the MC, but still getting them to understand, like, hey, this wasn't here the whole time. Everyone didn't have the privilege of being able to have a headquarters to talk about some of the difficult things that students have to experience on or off campus, right?
Right.
You know, but yeah, no, like, alums reaching out to, and it's good to see alums engaging. I think that's one of the best things. I didn't expect the alum engagement to be the way it is, but I do appreciate people's support. And I think it's cool to see the connections. I guess you know 100%. What I mean, like, from alum, like, current students, alums, and then prospective students. Like, it's like a chain. It's like a chain of people who want progression on campus in the most positive way. So yeah, I don't know, whatever. I mean, I think those are my two big highlight events for this academic year. I feel like just to give more insight to Wisdom Wednesday, right? I guess we could talk about that. So Wisdom Wednesday is our personal development, personal, professional / character development conversations that we have every week, and it's probably one of the only things that we do, like, very consistently. Which sounds bad to say, but it's not a bad. No. Like, it's not bad, because we do obviously do programming consistently.
Yeah.
But it is the one thing that we do, like, every single week, nonstop, no matter what.
Yep.
No matter how crazy my day is, no matter how busy, how many meetings I have, which I have a lot a day. Before or after, we always stop 1:00 on Wednesdays and talk about personal development. And the reason why I found that it's super important to have those conversations is because I feel like people have to have a certain level of maturity first before
Mm-hmm.
engaging in diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations, right? And I think people also have to have a well, an understanding of self first, right?
Right.
Because if you don't understand yourself, um, then you won't even begin to try to understand somebody else's experience, right? So it's like, yeah, let's talk about internal personal development, and like your personal character. Everyone assumes they're a good person. I've done it a million times, but then like, are my actions following that? Like, is my does my life consist of that? And I think working on that has allowed our students to stretch themselves in a way. And I don't have the data to back this up. It's all qualitative, and I don't know. I'll give the floor to you in a second, Leela. But I feel like the students that we have a heightened level of maturity. Even though freshmen are gonna like be loud, play, joke
Well,
around. That's just
yeah.
freshmen, right? That like I'm expecting that. But like even some of the sophomores from last year, I mean, the freshmen from last year that are now sophomores. I
Right.
mean, right? They're like, I feel like everybody that comes to Wisdom Wednesdays and just comes to the center is like, they are. I don't know. I just feel like they're significantly more mature
Yeah, I
than
definitely.
the average student. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but like I just feel like that, like,
Yeah, they have
yeah,
just such different like viewpoints of the world
yeah,
that for typical college students their
mm-hmm.
age, like it's really kind of amazing that they
Mm-hmm.
have like that ability to just kind of their awareness,
Mm-hmm.
their just awareness of life
Mm-hmm.
and awareness of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And um yeah, it is, it's like really inspiring to
Mm-hmm.
hear what they have to say too, because
Yeah,
when you think about college, you think of like stereotypical students
yeah,
just thinking about going to the next party.
yeah.
But that's not at all like what um students at the center, like
Mm-hmm.
their priorities are always on on are usually always on
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
advancing
for the most
themselves.
part, right? They're
Yeah.
still college kids,
Yeah.
right?
But I'm
Mm-hmm.
surprised at how, yeah, at how mature that
Mm-hmm.
they all are,
Yeah.
and how committed they are
Mm-hmm.
to bettering themselves for the most
Yeah.
part. Of course,
Yeah.
everyone's college students.
Well, yeah,
So.
exactly. And like to see, like we've had a large group of freshmen this year that like consistently come, like,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, for me. I mean, we started out last year with like not a lot of students coming to Wisdom Wednesdays, right? I'm sending out my little emails to the university, like,
Yeah.
and then there's me and four kids, like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
nobody was there. But this year, seeing, and then there was like literally this week's Wisdom Wednesday. There were so many people in the room I
That
did
I've
not
never seen
know.
before. Yeah.
I was like, what? So, and I think, as we begin to wrap up, one of the things that I think is really important is like, when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not about just like your marginalized identity. It's about the whole person. Like, who are you at your heart? Who are you at your core? And that's why I think, the Wisdom Wednesday, like, it has been our most, I think, impactful
Mm-hmm.
um, initiative
Program.
program. Like the kickbacks, multicultural kickbacks are cool. Um, you know, the gala's cool. National Coming Out Day is cool. MLK celebration is cool. But in terms of developing young leaders,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the coolest thing so
Yeah.
far.
Definitely.
So yeah, no. Any last words? Any, like, I don't know, last sign off words before we wrap up?
No, I just mean come to the MC.
Yes,
Support
yes,
us.
yes. Come to the MC. Support us. Follow our Instagram and our TikTok at shoe underscore multicultural center
Underscore.
underscore. I know. Listen, that's what happens when
It's
you start
long.
out by yourself and you barely got a budget, right? You just work with what you got. But yeah, come to the Multicultural Center. Visit, and that goes to anyone who's watching this. I don't care if you're a prospective student,
Mm-hmm.
if you are a higher education professional, you're staff member, faculty member. We literally do practice what we preach in terms of inclusion and try to be open to having all come into the center and just learn and be a part of the vibes. Like it's just good vibes in there.
It is.
So yes, for the culture podcast, signing off. This is Rob Johnson from Sacred Heart University Multicultural Center, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Thank you.